Welcome to Positive Perspectives, a podcast dedicated to sharing powerful stories that present opportunities to grow from lived experiences. Each week, we speak to expert guests who bring thought-provoking topics, meaningful lessons, or stories that spark transformation and deepen understanding. Today's guest is Bianca Jones, who is a passionate mental health educator, race equity facilitator, and the founder of Race Ahead, a pioneering program helping organizations to build truly equitable and psychologically safe workspaces. Bianca is a mental health first aid England associate instructor, CIPD qualified learning and development specialist, and the managing director of EDP training. She brings a unique blend of lived experience, insight, and humor to our conversations around identity, well-being, and leadership. Hi, Bianca. Welcome to Positive Perspectives.
Hi, Marie. Thanks for having me. What a great intro.
And can you tell us a bit more about yourself and what you're going to be sharing with us today?
Training into businesses to make them healthier. That is what it kind of boils down to. Places where everybody can thrive, everybody can be their authentic selves. More importantly, where nobody gets hurt in the workplace because of the colour of their skin, which is when I created the Race Ahead program, as you know, which is something that I'm really passionate about. My story of growth, resilience, and self-care, and how I came into the well-being and mental health space originally. I thought that would be where I would start.
Thank you. So this is a story that illustrates how your lived experiences dramatically shaped your future, and contributed to you being such a successful businesswoman here today.
Absolutely.
Great. We'd love to hear your thoughts, your story.
9 years ago, I had a beautiful daughter. And in the midst of it, I was living away from home, and the mix of starting motherhood, which was quite a shock, and being in what was an unsupportive relationship, I developed postnatal depression. And it was just a really difficult time. I think having a child at 30 years old can be quite a shock for many women. And then being a woman of colour and all the things that can come along with that. Like the groups I would go to, there was nobody that kind of looked like me. And apart from talking to family and friends, it was quite a lonely experience as well. I guess that the spiral and the worst part for me was living away from where I was brought up and where my family and friends were, with a kind of unsupportive person. And it got to a point where I was so poorly. I was just thinking every day about just wanting to go to sleep, or what would it be like if I wasn't here? Do I matter? My self-esteem was starting to be chipped away at as well. And for anyone who's experienced depression, just the superhuman strength that it takes to do anything. And I guess the worst part was when my cognitive thinking was just shot to pieces. And a lot of people, when they think about depression, we think about some of the obvious symptoms, like not doing what you enjoy, being tired. And we sometimes overlook the kind of more psychological issues. And for me, I was trying to make a cup of tea. And when I tell people this story on my training, sometimes they're just looking at me like, you're a business owner, you look so together. And of course I am together 9 years later. But at the time, I couldn't think how to make a cup of tea. I couldn't think what order, boiling the kettle, where does the milk come in, the sugar, the tea bag. Like, even that was just so overwhelming. It felt like the most biggest task ever. And I think it was that point where I was like, okay, this is not okay. It was my first child, so sometimes you don't know. But the cup of tea, that was a real turning point for me. And that was when I decided that I needed to get some sort of external help and support to start my recovery journey.
There's a lot to unpack there, actually. And that's very interesting about how we don't think of the psychological, we don't think of what's going on inside our heads. We think of the outward facing differences that might happen or unusual things that might be happening around us. So they're more around the physical. But when you start to look at what psychologically is going on inside, that's the reality, in actual fact.
People are more tuned into what we visibly see with signs and symptoms of poor mental health or mental ill health, because it's more obvious. We can see actions and behaviors, but actually the thoughts that somebody's having, the washing machine style that someone can go into, the negative thoughts, the negative self-talk, being really unkind to yourself as well. And of course, at the worst point that we have to mention as well is thoughts of kind of not wanting to be here anymore and thoughts of wanting to end your life, which does happen. And we know statistically as well, for women of colour, during pregnancy, in labour and post, there's lack of support. And the statistics obviously show that there are poorer outcomes for women of colour as well.
So how did you move on from that? What happened? What pivotal things happened to you?
I think it's important as a mum, a new mum, specifically for me. And I'm not ashamed to say that there was a bit of grief involved. I mean, I lived a full life of, to 30 before I had a child, and I traveled and I did all these fantastic things. So there was definitely a part of grief there, which my mum actually kind of pointed out to me and said, I think you should visit the GP. It wasn't the first time that I went to the GP when she said that. It took a few times for her to say and encourage. And it landed. And I was like, okay, I need to go. So the first point was reaching out for help at the GP, which was the first port of call. And they signposted things to me. It wasn't just about medication. Medication is right for some people. It was for me. And I see that as access and support. I think that's a very positive thing to do, but not on its own. So medication, I had therapy as well. So it started with talking therapy and then CBT therapy. And then when I got to a place where I thought that I could actually access self-care and self-help strategies myself, which was a few months down the line, it wasn't straight away. And I think if someone would have said to me when I was in the throes of deep depression, just go for a walk, just look at the colours of the leaves on the tree, I think that I would have had some choice words for them. So I think you need to be mindful of where somebody is to what kind of help and support you're offering. But it was a couple of months later, and I tuned in with Action for Happiness, which is a free resource. You can attend their webinars, and they do these great calendars as well. And they have a great book called Great Dream. And someone gave it to me a couple of months before, and I finally had the energy to be able to pick it up and read it. And it was a community as well. I mean, Action for Happiness are fantastic. So I'm still a big advocate for all the work that they do. And, they want to make the nation happier. And their stuff really helped me to start to get into the well-being space and understanding that actually everybody's got mental health. The quality is what varies. But also what I thought was really empowering on my journey is that we can impact this, our mental fitness, by doing bits of self-care, help our mental fitness, which also then helps our mental health quality and well-being as well. And I think the magic moment for me, when I learned that you can impact this and maintain your well-being or impact it positively, I thought, I can do something. And I felt in control. And for someone who's severely depressed, to feel in control and that you can do something to help your future and to help how you're feeling, I just found that was amazing. And then when I looked around me and I looked at family and friends and I looked at different areas where I live in the Bristol kind of area, and I was thinking, well, how many people know this? Like actually how easy it is when you feel up to it that you can impact your own well-being and mental health. And it just gave me a really big drive to spread this message and awareness to everyone that I could. I find out, and I'm quite resourceful, and I researched around Mental Health First Aid England and the courses that they deliver, which are fantastic for the starting line, for understanding mental health and well-being. I retrained with them to be able to deliver their mental health first aid courses. And in 1 year, because of the good feedback that I had, I was able to apply to become an associate instructor, which was the next level up, to be trusted, to work with their corporate clients, which was quite amazing. And, as well, I had training and facilitation in my background in retail, but it was all over my CV, Marie. It wasn't like, a qualification. And as the statistics say, as women, we feel we need to go and get a qualification or a certificate. So that's what I did. I also trained with the CIPD in learning and development for adult learning as well. So that, coupled with the MHFA, gave me a really strong starting point to go out and deliver the mental health training that I'm so passionate about, and still am. I mean, our business, EDP, is rooted in mental health and well-being.
So what was really interesting about what you said, and in the starting point, was around how you have to really understand what works for you, not going to one place or the other just because maybe you heard this is what you should be doing, but really having some sort of self-awareness and thinking this is a route for me to take, and to take that route. The other thing that you were talking around was the time. You had to give yourself time, navigate, manage, work through what you were going through so that you could then come back to a space where you were open. You were open and you could engage. So that was interesting about, the book, really kind of immersing yourself in mental health. That sounds like it was your healing.
It absolutely was a massive part of my recovery. And I'm a strong believer that it's not just going to be one thing that can make somebody feel better or get back to positive mental health. I honestly believe that it is a joint approach of everything around you, from professional help, what's available in your workplace, your friends and your family, charities, what's available locally. I mean, luckily, I'm quite a resourceful person before that. But for anybody who wasn't, just knowing that actually there's things around you that you can access to help you. And particularly for minoritized community, the empowerment piece, the accessibility piece is really even more important because of the layers and the discrimination that they face as well, which is another reason why I then got into the Race Ahead side of my business, which is very much race equity. It's got a well-being lens throughout, and everything that I do will always have a mental health lens throughout, because it's so important. It's our engines that, run us as humans. So it's really important to me. And I think my message to everyone is you can't recover on your own in silo. We need connection, and we need to use resources. And okay, we also need to understand that when people are severely poorly, they might not be able to access those resources themselves, which is why other people having basic knowledge around mental health and well-being is so important. And then having the added knowledge when it comes to thinking about marginalized groups in society, and also thinking about what they may have faced and what their challenges might be for accessing help and support as well.
So that's very interesting, because you kind of touched on the fact that certain marginalized groups may not have access to this information, and maybe culturally or even have awareness that this is an issue. What would you kind of say, or what sort of tools, or where would you signpost people?
We've come a long way in the 9 years since I've been delivering this kind of training. There was nothing around. There was Batan, which is the directory for kind of therapists of colour. But there was nothing else. So where we are now is fantastic, but we still need so much more. And we do need to acknowledge, Marie, absolutely, there are global majority groups where they wouldn't acknowledge mental health as a medical illness. There's also groups where they wouldn't seek medical support first. It might be encouraged to go to the pastor, for example, or the community leader, for example. So there is that challenge. But even with those pockets, the statistics don't lie when it comes to global majority and mental health inequalities and health inequalities as a whole. COVID shone a really big light on the inequalities for global majority in England. We continue to see it with Black women, more likely to die in childbirth, more likely to have poorer outcomes post having a baby. I'm a prime example right here. And then the mental health inequalities, Black Caribbean men statistically more likely to be sectioned, dual heritage women more likely to be sectioned as well, more people in hospital that are people of colour as well. We have Black, African and Caribbean groups least for taking up medication as well as therapy. But also there's the other side of it. Are they being offered therapy? Because one of the things that brought me into the space is the inequalities that I faced on my recovery journey, which was I wasn't offered therapy. I wasn't offered the standard, therapy that they offer to patients. There was a lot of assumptions made about me because the colour of my skin by doctors and medical professionals. And I also have a family member with a diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder, so a severe psychological illness. So I've seen the inequalities there as well of how that person's being treated by the mental health system. And we know that Black people statistically have poor outcomes across many institutions in the UK. And that drove me to kind of make a difference and start the courses that I'm doing, also because of the exclusion that I see so often for people of colour in the workplace, which is a place where we spend so much of our time. So it really fueled me to want to do something about it, to get the education out there. And for people, I just think it's looking at what's out there. We've got Black Minds Matter now, which is a kind of another directory that can help. Where I am in Bristol, we have some great organisations as well. So I think searching locally for what's available, looking for support groups, which are popping up everywhere, particularly for marginalised groups that you can go to with other people that look like you or other people that might have experienced the challenges that you've experienced. And connection is so important. That's one thing that I did learn about, particularly depression. We want to isolate. The brain and our feelings tell us to just isolate, sit in our pajamas, stay by ourselves. But we actually need the opposite. We need connection with other people.
Yeah, definitely. And activities and just going out and doing things. So at what stage did the idea of helping people transform from just a thought into something tangible?
Oh, I think that the drive. So what happened in between all this is I actually broke up with the person that I had a child with. And I was left pretty unexpectedly and quickly with a kind of chubby 6-month-old. And I moved back to where I lived with nothing. And I actually lived with my parents for a while till I got back on my feet. And I think the drive to, I've got this little child to look after, but then also I don't want to just go back into a workplace. So I got made redundant at the same time from my retail position as well. So I was like, okay, this is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for growth. And I was thinking, what can I do that I'm going to love and that I'm going to be able to do and do for the rest of my life? And I thought, okay, I can deliver training around mental health and I can deliver training and knowledge about race equity. And that's what I want to do. And I made the decision. And then I started putting the wheels in motion with the MHFA and the training. And I can remember when I think my daughter was about 2 and you get some nursery hours, and it was like 4 hours for 2 days or something, so 8 hours in total. Which of course at the time I was like single mum, I was like, yes. But in those hours, I was calling out the yellow pages. I don't know who remembers like the yellow pages or the kind of BT book. I was calling businesses and I was talking about what I was going to be doing. And if they had any people that wanted to come on the course, I was showing them in presentations. It was before we used Zoom this much. So I was actually going to see people and have meetings. And I guess I was just driven and I was talking myself up as well. I was having the confidence to say how fantastic I was and how great this training was going to be. And I think that's how I got some of my first clients that I still work with today. But I just think pure drive. I don't think you can do a business and not be 100% passionate about it, because you won't be able to get up at the 6 o'clock in the morning and start. You won't be able to do that extra bit a couple of years later when it's really needed. And lived experience is something that's really important to me. Yeah. I think if you're facilitating on a topic, I think the lived experience really comes through and shines. Yeah. And I think for me, the mental health and my journey was something really important, that I just wanted to serve others. And I think the race inequalities was catapulted by the Black Lives Matter movement. So even though I've been doing bits here and there around race equity, particularly with Mental Health First Aid England as well, I helped them with the design and the deployment and delivery of their race equity training to make sure that their instructors that are out there talking about mental health are not unwittingly feeding into stereotypes. So I helped deploy with that training, and that also helped me to go on to further develop what I was doing already, being given that opportunity. And companies that I was working with around mental health got wind of it and were like, oh, this training that you're doing now about race equity in, post Black Lives Matter movement, we are interested in it. And it just gave me an opportunity to bring that to the forefront of my business as well. And I think that those two topics of racism and the impact on mental health are just so ingrained in me. They're a part of me. You can't fake that. You can't fake about how passionate you are about that, or how much it means to you, how knowledgeable you are. And again, all I want to do is be able to get that education out there where it's needed to make things better over majority of people, particularly in the workplace, with mental health inequalities as well. Again, a lot of it can stem from somewhere where we spend so much of our time. So, I want to serve others, but the vessel is the race ahead suite of courses as well.
So I can feel that passion, lots of passion coming from you around what you're delivering, how you want to support people, and the courses you deliver as well. So what were some of the toughest challenges that you have actually faced, and how did you navigate them?
Oh, gosh. There's probably been the main challenge, which is still a challenge, is being a single mum, right? I mean, let's be real. I'm 9 years into business. I have a 9-year-old. It's tough to do that juggle and to switch gears. I guess for me, I've got really supportive parents. I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for the support of friends, siblings. I just wouldn't be here, because the amount of juggling that you have to do and support that you need and the stretchedness of your capacity, you need help. And I think everyone needs help anyway, but add the single mum element and you need even more help. I mean, I run my home like a military operation. What we're having for dinner is on the fridge. My me time, self-care, which is really important to me because I've been in mental ill health, and I will do anything to kind of mitigate against that happening again. So for me, who's so busy, I have to do micro self-care. So if that's before I get out of bed, I do a meditation. And then when I get out of bed, I do my gratitude. And then I do some affirmations at lunchtime. I make sure I have a break from the screen. I make sure I do even a 10-minute stretch. I do a lot of 10 minutes, which I call kind of micro self-care, because I don't have the time in the evenings after I kind of do bath book story with my child. So I do a lot of micro things to keep myself well and to maintain this, which is better than nothing. And particularly if you can't get a whole day off, the micro really helps me. But family, friends, and support network, I think, is so important. I think the worst times for me is trying to navigate going to work responsibilities and that childcare piece. And then you can imagine you've recovered from something which I can only compare to a hurricane as depression. You've now got this business which is starting to thrive. You're navigating childcare with someone who isn't fantastic at communicating with you. And you're doing all this on your own. And then there's a situation that happened to me, and it was probably about 2 years in, and it was a venue that I was regularly using, and I was delivering training there, and the big boss was down for this venue, and they were walking over to me, and I thought, oh, the big boss is going to say thank you for choosing our venue month on month to deliver your courses. And in that second that he was walking towards me, he actually went to the lady next to me and said, oh, thank you so much for your business. it was a white lady. And he assumed in those seconds walking up to me that it couldn't possibly be me, that was doing this training monthly and renting their venue. And I can remember that stinking feeling of, you've made a judgment because of your conditioning, because of your bias, because of the water that you swim in. You've walked up to two women, but you've assumed that this woman is not the business owner. And that really stuck with me. And that really affected me for a good, well, still now, I have that in the back of my head. Now, the lady was excellent. And this was before the time of talking about allyship. She literally said, you're talking to the wrong person. This is the fantastic Bianca, the business owner. She handled it so well. And I need to tell her that, actually. And I've never actually said to her about that situation. So I'm going to make a note to do that. But again, it's something that really stuck with me. And I thought, if that could undermine 2 years of hard work and training and retraining for me, how many other global majority people are being undermined and chipped away at, and their psychological health and mental health being on the line because of other people's condition and other people's bias? And that really is what has driven me. I think that's one of the kind of pivotal moments that will always stay with me, that I worked so hard for those 2 years to build up my business, and to somebody, the colour of my skin still told them that I couldn't do it. And it's those moments that stay with me. It's the moments when I turn up to deliver training and they're like pointing me to the catering staff in the kitchen. Those moments that kind of stick with me and spur me on. There's been so many other moments over the 9 years to keep it together, to do what I love. And I think that the drive and motivation is what will always keep me going.
Yes, thank you for sharing those stories, because in terms of, it's a reality. It's a reality for women of colour, global majority, that these situations happen, that people don't necessarily think when they see people on a platform or doing something they're not conditioned to seeing them doing, that they feel that it's somebody else is responsible for the magnificent work that they are doing. So you've shared something with us that has helped to add to that drive, if you like. Can you share maybe a small win or something from a client, that's a story from a client that's kept you motivated?
Yeah, I think that particularly in the current climate, we've got divides happening. We've got in workplaces, we will have people that have been on those marches, and we will have people that have those beliefs. We have to manage that as well, because racists are louder than allies. And I think we can get so disheartened, particularly myself in the work that I do, in the current climate, also with the riots in kind of 23, 24. The Black Lives Matter movement. You have to be so resilient to kind of keep going. And when I think as a whole, taking kind of the race equity stuff out of it, even with COVID, the credit crisis, there's so many things that I've brought my business through. And I think that it's the clients, the learners, the groups, the feedback, the fantastic instructors that I've got. The team are absolutely amazing. I'm really passionate about really good facilitation. And we've got some really good people on our team that are delivering this education out there as well. And I'm really proud of them. Every course I have, there might be one person sat there with their arms folded, but I have, 15 others that are really into it and want to be allies, but they often don't know the how. And that's where they need help. They don't need to be chastised. They need help of how to be a better ally. And I think that that's really important to acknowledge. And I genuinely believe that there are more allies out there than racists, but racists are louder. And I think that the reviews, the testimonies, what happens in the workplace after, the cohesion, everyone being able to actually talk openly, be their authentic selves. I just think seeing that after our courses, and even the fact of bringing it back to they've had a safe space for a morning or a whole afternoon to be able to talk about race and racism, which is pretty amazing for a workplace to give that time off and give people the opportunity to have a safe space to be able to talk on this. I mean, that's amazing. There's still companies that haven't done anything around race equity specifically. And I talk a lot about how the race protected characteristic is often left out or left behind because people are so fearful or don't know what to do around it. So the fact that I am going into organizations, the other instructors are going into organizations and we're having these conversations, I think is amazing. And the reviews, the change, the differences, the light bulb moments for people, I'm seeing this, I'm in it. So when I've got people saying everyone's racist, well, actually, they're not. Not everyone is racist. Yeah. And I have to constantly remind people of that. But that gives me hope. There are so many people out there that want to help, but it's the how. So that's what I think is really special about the work that I do and why it's important. And I think that the people are what makes it. And if I can do my part to help turn the tide on racism and healthier workplaces for global majority, then that's a legacy. And I'm really happy that I can be a part of it and be on the right side of history.
Totally. That's an amazing legacy. I'm quite intrigued to find out, how do you manage the person who crosses their arms and looks at you in a certain way in a workshop?
Yeah, it can be quite challenging. And I know when I'm going into a group that's been mandated, as opposed to a group of volunteers, because there's definitely a difference in your introduction. As well. We do a lot to negate around the crossed arms person. We send pre-work before, we send introduction videos to your trainer. And actually we use the group because there's always more allies in the group than there is racists. And actually the group bring the person on the journey. I mean, our course itself is the one day in person or online. We can't undo 70 years of conditioning in one day. And with some people, the arms crossed people, my hope is we've planted a seed or perhaps opened a new neural pathway or a little bit of opportunity. Whereas with someone else, my hope might be that they've got a full-on action plan for how they're going to put allyship into their practice every day. Different people, I will have different hopes for. The arms crossed person who's possibly got 50 years of conditioning for us to undo and unpick, that's a little bit more of a challenge. And my aim for that person is usually that we've planted a seed of possibly seeing a different perspective.
Yeah. Thank you for that. If you were to speak to a version of yourself who was struggling in those early days, what would you say to her now?
So cliche, but I think it is like, just be yourself and believe in yourself. What I have learned in everything I've been through, the business, my personal growth, you can't pretend to be anyone else. You can only be you. And who you are is enough. There's only one you. There's only one Bianca Jones on the planet. And I think when you say that, it's something really special. Like, there is only one of you. And you're amazing. And I think you've got to believe in yourself. And I really wish that I believed in myself earlier, because as much as I'm confident and I'm, I kind of kick down any door to get through, which is how I've got to where I am. I didn't get here by being quiet. I didn't get here by being a wallflower. But there's been times of imposter syndrome. There's been times where I've had low confidence. My self-esteem has been chipped away. There's been personal challenges in the background. And I think just knowing that you can get through that, and you don't have to get through that by being or trying to be anything else. Stick to what you're good at, stick to what you do really well, stick to your lane and be fantastic. Because there's been times over the years I've thought, particularly when there's been COVID, credit crisis, D&I backlash, there's times where you sit and you think, am I doing the right thing? Maybe I should change careers. And then I think, this is just what I love. This is what I'm good at. I know that this is the space that I'm supposed to be in. I know racism and mental health, race equity, it's me. And I think that helps to find your purpose, to know what you want to do, because it gives you that drive and motivation, which you can't fake and you can't pretend. You will be found out. If it's not in your veins, you won't be able to continue it year on year on year on year, as we've seen with a lot of drop off from some of the businesses and people that were around post Black Lives Matter movement in particular as well. I think it's really got to be what you love doing. And again, the self-care. Oh my goodness. If I wasn't doing self-care, accessing therapy, which I still do, I mean, I love therapy. I think it's fantastic. We go to the gym for our physical health. We should absolutely go to a therapist for our mental health weekly, 2 weekly, whatever. So yeah, I'm a big fan of accessing mental health support and services as well. And I think that has seen me through, to be honest, the resources and what I can do myself, because you have to help yourself. And I know some people are going to watch this, Marie, and they're going to think, well, what about people in severe depression, severe anxiety, who don't feel like they can even get washed or brush their teeth? I completely understand that. And I've been there. And it's just giving yourself time and being kind to yourself. And if it's just that you've got out of bed, if it's just that you've brushed your teeth, if it's just that you've replied to an email, celebrate that. And I don't think we celebrate ourselves enough, which is something that I've also incorporated as well. I just think be confident enough to be more you.
Yeah, I love that. The
But it's
whole
not easy, is it? It's a
no.
process. Still ongoing.
Yeah. Yeah. Conversation has been repeatedly about this is a journey. This takes time. Look after yourself in the process and, build yourself up, give yourself strength, in order to take that journey, and be aware of everything that you interact with, that you work with, everything that's out there that can help you and support you and connect with or bring into your sphere people that are going to support you, those
Mm.
connections you have, family, friends, work colleagues, whoever that can help you on your journey of life.
That is a big one, though. I just want to say sometimes we go where is familiar, but it's not necessarily around people where we actually feel loved and supported. And sometimes you have to make a change for the greater good, and you have to change circles, let people go, move on sometimes, because you'll be surprised how many of us go around what's familiar and actually we might have outgrown it. It might not be good for us. It might not be people that are even supporting us. So going where you feel loved, I
Mm.
think is really underrated and actually really important.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for that, Bianca. Do you have one takeaway for our audience?
I have so many. If I had to say one thing to everybody out there, I would say the importance of self-care. And I think that self-care piece leads on to other things like confidence, self-esteem, empowerment. But if I had to peel all of those things back that I feel I possess and that other people can possess, it all starts with actually that self-care piece, that you are worth it. Boundaries, no, that's self-care. Going for a walk, meditation, whatever it might be, you can implement it. There's no excuse. Everyone can do, even if it's 5 minutes a day, we can all do it and we can all access that. And I think self-care, that is what is vital in the current climate. Self-care, vital for your survival. It's not selfish, it's vital.
Thank you, Bianca, for sharing such a personal story that's kind of fueled your passion and supported others as well. And it demonstrates how your journey has led from survival to success. So thank you.